Good morning, chosen ones. If you are hearing this message right now, do not scroll away. Stay, because this is not an ordinary message, it is a divine appointment. The Lord Himself has arranged this moment for you. By His power, He has guided your steps and your screen to meet these words. This is not coincidence, it is calling. For even now, someone has been paying attention to you, watching the way you move, the way you speak, even the way you style your hair. They may not understand why they notice you, but heaven knows. Because what draws their eyes is not vanity, it is the evidence of grace resting upon your life. You see, heaven has turned its gaze toward you. Every gesture, every quiet decision, every act of faith, even the way you carry yourself bears the fingerprint of divine intention. The eyes upon you are not merely human, they are witnesses of what God is doing in you. When the Lord chooses someone, He doesn't only anoint their voice, He anoints their presence. That is why you shine without trying, why peace follows you even in chaos, and why your stillness commands attention without a single word. You might think no one truly sees you, that your obedience and your faith have gone unnoticed, but heaven is watching. Every time you choose silence over pride, kindness over anger, surrender over control, heaven records it. The angels lean in, and the Spirit whispers, "This one belongs to me." The attention around you, even the misunderstanding of others, is part of something greater. It is divine choreography. God is allowing certain eyes to rest on you so that His light within you can expose and heal what is hidden in them. You are not being mocked. You are being used as a mirror for revelation. There are conversations taking place in rooms you've never entered. Some speak your name with admiration, others with confusion, but all of it serves the same purpose: to make His work through you visible. Do not mistake the weight of being seen for the burden of being judged. You are not under scrutiny, you are under assignment. God is showing the world what grace looks like when it walks, breathes, and stands upright in the face of noise. Every whisper, every watchful glance, every subtle reaction around you is proof that the presence of God cannot be ignored. You are living in a holy season, a moment of divine observation. Every choice you make becomes a message, every step a testimony. Your composure teaches more than your words ever could. You are not performing, you are reflecting the King. The Lord is using your life as a living scripture, a sermon written not in ink but in integrity. And though others may look with curiosity, heaven looks with approval. In The Weight of Glory, C.S. Lewis once wrote, "There are no ordinary people. You have never talked to a mere mortal." And he was right. Nothing about you is ordinary. The way you endure, the way you remain faithful, the way you let peace guard your heart, these are the marks of someone chosen, someone who carries eternity within their steps. You are not being overlooked. You are being unveiled. So stand firm, chosen one. You don't need to prove what heaven has already proclaimed. The Lord is turning the gaze of others into testimony, transforming judgment into recognition, and shaping curiosity into conviction. Even the way you style your hair has become part of His divine illustration, proof that holiness can dwell in the smallest details of a surrendered life. Now pause and reflect. Have you felt lately that someone has been watching you not with hatred, but with quiet fascination? If this word resonates in your spirit, write it in the comments. I am seen by heaven. Because you are, and heaven is not just watching you. Heaven is writing through you. But hear this, chosen one, before revelation comes, there is always misunderstanding. Before light is embraced, it must first be resisted. Those who now observe you with softened eyes once looked upon you with suspicion. They saw your confidence and called it pride. They mistook your silence for indifference, your humility for weakness. They could not comprehend the peace that clothed you, so they labeled it detachment. What they could not explain, they tried to condemn. And yet, none of it was truly about you. It was the reflection of their own hearts when confronted with a light they could not yet understand. You walked among them quietly, unaware that your very endurance was a living message. Your calm disturbed their chaos. Your stillness confronted their noise. Every time you chose silence over defense, it unsettled the storm within them. Every time you responded with grace instead of bitterness, it revealed their hunger for what they lacked. They saw your steps, but not the path that led you there. They noticed your smile, but not the cost behind it, the midnight prayers, the quiet tears, the unspoken sacrifices. They saw your posture, but not your process. They judged what they could see, while heaven watched what they could not. The Lord allowed this not to humiliate you, but to refine you. Misjudgment was not a curse, it was consecration. God was using perception as purification, teaching you to stay grounded in truth even when misunderstood. It is easy to walk upright when celebrated, but faith is proven in the shadows of misconception. The chosen are not measured by applause, but by their ability to remain faithful when unseen, to love without recognition, to serve without reward, to shine without needing to be noticed. For the word declares, "Do not judge by appearances, but judge with right judgment." John 7:24. This truth has guarded your heart like armor. While others measured you by what was visible, heaven measured you by what was eternal. While they debated your worth, God confirmed your calling. What they called arrogance was confidence born of divine assurance. What they named detachment was peace forged through surrender. Their judgment was shallow, but your roots were deep. Do not despise those who misunderstood you. Through them, the Lord was training your discernment. Their criticism carved humility into your soul. Their blindness sharpened your vision. What felt like rejection was divine redirection. Every false opinion became a furnace, and in that furnace, your spirit was refined. This was the sacred testing of your heart, the proving ground between perception and truth. You stood still when others spoke loudly, and in that stillness, heaven saw strength. What they misread as passivity was actually power under control. And from that soil of misjudgment, God began to grow something lasting: respect, revelation, and awe. For while the world looked at you and saw simplicity, heaven looked deeper and saw destiny in disguise. And then, chosen one, something began to shift. Slowly at first, then with quiet persistence. The same eyes that once looked upon you with judgment began to linger, not with scorn, but with curiosity. The very people who dismissed you could no longer ignore you. They began to notice the way you carried peace into chaos, the way your presence calmed a room without words, the way you listened without needing to prove, the way your eyes held a stillness that spoke louder than noise. Even the way you styled your hair, simple, unforced, natural, carried a quiet assurance that could not be mimicked. They had watched many who were loud, confident, and self-assured, yet there was something different about you. Your strength was silent, your confidence sacred, your authority unspoken. At first, they did not understand why they were drawn to you. They told themselves it was curiosity, but it was conviction. For every time they saw you, something in them shifted. What once irritated them now inspired them. What once provoked jealousy now produced reflection. They found themselves replaying your responses in their mind, your patience when you could have argued, your restraint when you could have retaliated. They realized that what they called weakness was actually wisdom, and what they mistook for passivity was power disciplined by peace. This is what happens when light meets darkness. It doesn't attack, it reveals. Your life began to act as a mirror, and in that mirror, they saw the contrast between your peace and their unrest, your faith and their fear, your integrity and their pretense. They couldn't escape it. The more they observed you, the more they saw themselves, and in that silent reflection, transformation began. Not through debate, not through persuasion, but through presence. You became the sermon they could not unhear, the reflection they could not avoid. The Lord was using you as a vessel of revelation. You were not aware of it, but your consistency was shaping hearts. Without quoting scripture, you were living it. Without preaching, you were teaching. The Spirit was writing through your conduct what many fail to express with words. that true power is not found in control but in surrender. It is not in noise but in stillness. It is not in proving oneself, but in abiding in the one who sees. The word says, "You are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden." Matthew 5:14. And that is what began to unfold. Your light could not be hidden any longer. You did not seek attention, but the purity of your walk made it impossible to ignore. You had become a living reminder that holiness is not theatrical, it is transformational. The way you endured injustice without bitterness, the way you held your ground without pride, the way you remained kind when others were cruel, all of it began to soften hearts that once resisted you. This was the divine exchange in motion, judgment turning into wonder, opposition giving way to awe. They started to realize that the peace they mocked was the peace they needed. The same people who once spoke against you began to watch for your reaction, not to ridicule but to learn. Because something in you was awakening, something dormant in them. This is the mystery of divine influence. You were never sent to argue with darkness, but to outshine it. The spirit within you was never meant to impress, but to impact. And as they continued to observe, their perception began to bend toward truth. They could no longer deny what was happening. They were being changed, not by your words, but by your witness. The season of observation had begun. And though you said nothing, your life was speaking louder than ever, a living declaration that light, when pure, never demands to be seen. It simply shines, and by shining, it transforms. As the days passed, chosen one, the quiet observation began to evolve into something deeper. Those who once watched you from a distance now found themselves strangely moved. The same eyes that once measured you began to marvel. The same hearts that once resisted you began to soften. What started as simple curiosity grew into reverence, not for your outward form, but for the invisible radiance surrounding you. They began to perceive what they could not name before, that peace is not weakness, gentleness is not surrender, and grace carries a power no earthly effort can imitate. They saw how you walked through storms without losing your stillness, how you held dignity when others lost restraint, and how your silence seemed to hold more authority than their words. Gradually, they began to recognize a sacred rhythm in the way you lived, how every gesture carried quiet purpose, how your presence brought order without force, how your calm drew others into reflection rather than rivalry. What once stirred envy now inspired respect. What once felt strange now seemed holy. They no longer sought to compete with you. They began to examine who they had become in contrast to who they once were before seeing you. It was in this moment that the true transformation took root. Your life became a revelation of divine strength, showing that real power does not shout, it endures. You never tried to be greater than anyone else, yet your authenticity quietly dismantled pretense around you. You did not fight for recognition, yet truth itself defended you. And for the first time, they began to hunger for the same peace they had once mocked. What had irritated their pride now awakened their desire for purity. Admiration began to form not as flattery, but as awakening, the first trembling step toward repentance of the heart. They looked back on their own words and felt conviction. They realized they had misunderstood the sacred as ordinary, that they had mocked what they now deeply needed. The humility they once ridiculed became the very virtue they longed to learn. Their admiration was not about imitation, it was about revelation. When the human heart encounters true light, it cannot remain neutral. It bows, even if only in silence. The word declares, "Let your light so shine before others, that they may see your good works and glorify your Father in heaven." Matthew 5:16. And that is exactly what began to happen. Without sermon or speech, your life was preaching. Without declaring his name, you were displaying his nature. They began to recognize that what drew them to you was not charm, but the evidence of God's Spirit resting upon you. The calm in your demeanor was not personality, it was the fruit of prayer, the residue of communion, the quiet echo of divine intimacy. This was not fascination, it was reverence. They saw in you what their souls lacked: conviction without cruelty, beauty without vanity, faith without fear, strength without pride. You possessed something they could not copy, purchase, or perform. And for the first time, they did not want to be you. They wanted to meet the source that sustained you. Unknowingly, you had become a living revelation of God's gentleness, and might proof that holiness is not obsolete, that love still transforms, and that true light never argues to be seen, it simply shines. In your endurance they found an example. In your composure they found conviction, and in your quiet strength they felt the nearness of eternity. The admiration was never truly about you. It was about what was shining through you, the reflection of the one who chose you. And the hearts that once mocked now bowed within themselves, whispering words they never thought they would say, "Surely God is with this one." When admiration matured in their hearts, chosen one, it could no longer remain silent. Something within them began to stir, a quiet loyalty they did not understand. The same mouths that once spoke against you now hesitated to agree when others did the same. When mockery arose in conversation, they felt a sudden resistance rise inside them. Words that once flowed easily now tasted bitter. For the first time, they could not stand to hear your name misused. They found themselves stepping in to say, "You don't really know them," or "That's not true." What had begun as curiosity had become conviction, and conviction always demands a voice. This was the first sign of transformation, not yet confessed, but already alive. In defending you, they were unknowingly defending the light that had begun to awaken within themselves. Every time they stood for you, they were standing against the darkness that once controlled them. The same spirit that had stirred envy now stirred honor. The same eyes that once looked with judgment now sought to protect what they once attacked. And it did not stop there. Without realizing it, they began to imitate what they admired. Not in a shallow attempt to copy, but through an inward longing to carry what they had witnessed in you. They started to mirror your patience in moments of pressure, your composure in times of conflict, your grace when others failed them. Even in the smallest details, the way you moved, the way you spoke, the way you styled your hair with quiet confidence, they found themselves following traces of your example. It was not obsession, it was awakening. But soon they discovered a truth their hearts had not yet understood. One can imitate actions, but not essence. They could borrow your words, but not your wisdom. They could mirror your stillness, but not your spirit. For what radiated from you was not learned, it was imparted. It came from the secret place, from communion with the one who called you. And as they tried to live like you, they began to realize what you already knew, that peace cannot be performed, it must be possessed. This realization became their turning point. What started as mimicry turned into pursuit not of you, but of God. They began to crave what sustained you, to seek what anchored you. They desired the quiet strength that came from prayer, the humility born from surrender, the calm that only the Spirit can give. Your example had become their compass, your life a silent invitation to transformation. The word says, "Be imitators of God as beloved children and walk in love." Ephesians 5:1-2. And though they did not yet understand it, that was exactly what was unfolding. In trying to follow your example, they were being drawn toward His image. Their admiration had turned into alignment. Their loyalty had become learning. Even their imitation imperfect, incomplete, was a confession that they had seen something real, and their souls could no longer be content with imitation alone. And so, the once critical hearts became quiet learners. The ones who gossiped began to guard. The ones who doubted began to discern. Every defense they offered, every gesture they mirrored, became a small step toward awakening. You had not persuaded them with arguments, you had converted them with presence. You did not demand their belief, you inspired their becoming. They did not yet know it, but by defending you, they were defending their own rebirth. and by imitating you, they were being shaped for the same light that once exposed them. For this is how the Spirit works. He turns resistance into reverence, admiration into action, and imitation into identity. What began as their defense of you was, in truth, God's defense of the work He was doing in them. There comes a moment, chosen one, when what has been stirring in secret can no longer remain unseen. What begins in quiet admiration inevitably seeks expression. The heart, once guarded by pride and shadowed by restraint, begins to tremble beneath the weight of revelation. The change that once hid behind calm eyes now reaches the surface, not as words at first, but as presence. You notice it in the way they linger when you speak, the way their laughter softens when it reaches your ears, the way silence seems to grow heavy when you enter the room. They try to act as before, but the stillness betrays them. Their spirit recognizes something their mind cannot yet articulate. At first, they wrestle with it. They tell themselves that it's nothing, a passing feeling, a momentary awareness. But the truth grows louder. What they once observed from afar has now taken root within them. Your composure has become a reference point in their conscience. Your strength, a mirror reflecting what they long to become. And each time they see you, they are reminded of what peace truly looks like when clothed in humility. They try to hide it, to bury it beneath casual gestures and measured words, yet the light within them keeps breaking through. This is the nature of divine transformation. It begins invisibly but refuses to stay hidden. It does not demand attention. It reveals itself through the smallest cracks of the heart. And though they fear being seen, every expression, every pause, every quiet glance becomes a confession. For love, whether human or heavenly, cannot disguise itself forever. What began as judgment has turned into affection. What began as curiosity has become reverence. What began as defense has become devotion. The Lord, who sees every heart, allows this unveiling not to shame them, but to purify them. Their emotion is not rebellion, it is revelation. It is the soul awakening to the presence of truth. Truth that has a name, truth that has taken form through your obedience. They do not yet understand that what they feel is not merely toward you, but toward the God who moves through you. The human heart, when confronted with divine reflection, confuses awe with affection. But heaven knows the difference, and heaven uses even emotion as the language of awakening. The word declares, "For nothing is hidden that will not be made manifest, nor is anything secret that will not be known and come to light." Luke 8:17. And so it is now. What was concealed beneath silence has begun to surface. The shift can be felt in the air, in the eyes, in the very atmosphere around you. Their admiration has become something deeper, something weightier, something that cannot be dismissed as coincidence. You have become, to them, a living evidence of the sacred, the place where heaven touches earth and makes the unseen visible. Their bodies betray what their lips cannot say. The tone of their voice changes when they speak to you. The distance they once maintained has vanished into a tension both holy and human. It is not lust, it is longing, the longing of a spirit that has tasted light and cannot return to darkness. They try to explain it, to restrain it, to reason it away, but the truth no longer asks permission to exist. And so, the unveiling continues. What once hid behind polite conversation now breathes in every glance. What once lived in silence now hums beneath every word. The truth has broken through the walls of pride, and in its rawness there is no shame, only recognition. Recognition that what they feel is not infatuation, but awakening. That what draws them is not you alone, but the divine image that burns quietly within you. This is the holy exposure of the heart when love, humility, and truth intertwine, and the spirit can no longer pretend not to see. What was hidden is now revealed, what was restrained is now released. And every heartbeat whispers the same confession. The light they once rejected has become the light they now revere. And then, chosen one, the moment comes quiet, yet undeniable. The silence that once protected the heart can no longer contain what heaven has already revealed. The weight of truth, pressed down through seasons of restraint, begins to rise. It does not come with thunder or spectacle, but with the gentle certainty of dawn. You will not have to force it, nor will they be able to hide it. When the appointed time arrives, what has been concealed will speak for itself. It may happen in the simplest of ways, a conversation that begins lightly but deepens without warning, a glance that lingers too long, a word spoken with trembling sincerity. Suddenly, what was felt in shadows stands in the open air of understanding. Their eyes will no longer hide what their soul has already confessed. They will look at you not as they once did, but as one beholding a living truth. The distance that once shielded them will dissolve, and they will realize that the connection they tried to explain away was never human invention, it was divine orchestration. They will speak, or perhaps they will not, but even their silence will testify. Every unspoken word will carry the same confession, that what began as observation has become transformation, and that the one they once misjudged has become their mirror, their reminder, their message from God. The walls of pride will crumble under the weight of revelation. The truth will stand uncovered, tender, pure, holy, and it will not ask for permission to exist. For the word declares, "For there is nothing covered that will not be revealed, nor hidden that will not be known." Matthew 10:26. This is not merely the exposure of emotion, but the unveiling of divine design. Heaven never hides what it intends to heal, and revelation is never meant to humiliate, it is meant to free. What they confess, whether through words or through actions, will not be a declaration of defeat, but of surrender. Surrender to truth, surrender to light, surrender to the reality that God has been working through what they could not understand. The unveiling will not come as confrontation, but as clarity. It will not divide, but distinguish. For in that holy instant, all disguises will fall away not only from them, but from you. You will see more clearly why everything happened as it did, the misunderstanding, the tension, the waiting. Every unseen moment was a preparation for this, the sacred collision between revelation and recognition. They will come to see that it was never about admiration of flesh, but attraction to spirit, the magnetism of grace, the drawing power of authenticity. The revelation will humble them, yet also heal them. In acknowledging what they feel, they will acknowledge what they need, the presence of the one who dwells within you. It will be as though the veil is lifted, and suddenly they will understand that all along it was God speaking to them through your quiet obedience. And when that moment comes, you will not need to say much. Truth does not shout, it simply stands. You will feel the shift not in noise, but in peace. A peace that says, this was never about being seen by men, but about being known by heaven. The revelation will settle like morning light, firm, irreversible, radiant. The journey that began with misunderstanding will end in understanding. The eyes that once looked with judgment will now look with recognition. The heart that once resisted will now bow in reverence. For the truth, once hidden in silence, will have completed its work, and in that moment, both you and they will know. What was once whispered in secret has become the voice of destiny. And so, chosen one, when the final word has been spoken and all that was hidden has come into the light, you will see that you never needed to fight for recognition, for heaven itself was fighting for you all along. You were not called to win by force, but to endure with faith. You did not have to defend your name, for truth has always been your defender. When the noise fades and the voices fall silent, it is the quiet soul that remains standing. You see now why the Lord allowed misunderstanding, why he permitted judgment, why he kept you in the waiting. Every word spoken against you became a stone upon which your strength was built. Every false perception became the soil where humility took root. Every season of silence became a sanctuary where God whispered your identity again and again. You are mine. You did not rise through argument, you rose through alignment. You did not conquer through noise, you conquered through stillness. Because stillness is not weakness, it is authority restrained. And your calm has done what conflict never could. It has transformed hearts. What once seemed like defeat was, in truth, divine preparation. The ones who doubted you have been changed, not because you proved them wrong, but because your peace outlasted their pride. The word declares, "The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still." Exodus 14:14. And so you did. You stood still when others ran. You remained faithful when others faltered. You held your peace, and heaven crowned you with victory that no one can take away. As the dust settles, there is no bitterness in you, only gratitude. You realize now that vindication was never your goal. Transformation was. You understand that true triumph is not about being applauded, but about remaining authentic. The quiet strength of your obedience has spoken louder than any defense could. C.S. Lewis once wrote in Mere Christianity, "Integrity is doing the right thing, even when no one is watching." And that is what you have done. You walked in righteousness when unseen. You kept faith when uncelebrated. You stood firm when misunderstood. And that, chosen one, is the victory of the quiet soul, the triumph that heaven honors though the world overlooks. You did not win by shouting louder. You won by standing longer. You did not prove them wrong. You simply proved that truth endures. Because what is rooted in God cannot be shaken by man. Your peace has outlasted their opinions. Your light has overcome their doubt. And your humility has revealed the strength of heaven within you. So now, as the story closes, breathe deeply and rest in this truth. You are seen, you are known, and you are victorious not because of what you've done, but because of who you've become. The misunderstandings have passed, the revelation has spoken, and your stillness has become a song that heaven sings over you. If this message has reached your heart, pause for a moment and let it settle. Then, share it so others may find peace in their own silence. Click like, share, and comment below. I will stand still, for the Lord fights for me. Because this is not the end, chosen one. It is the beginning of your quiet, eternal victory. Before we part, let us pause for a moment of prayer to seal this truth within our hearts. Heavenly Father, thank you for seeing us, even in our silence. Teach us to stay still in your presence, to trust your timing, and to shine with quiet faith. Let our peace reflect your glory, and our lives honor your name. In Jesus' name, Amen.